Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat bertemu kembali di HW Podcast untuk saat ini. Dan untuk kali ini kita ada sebuah topik yang juga cukup menarik untuk kita bahas bersama-sama di channel ini. Namun hari ini juga kita punya tamu yang very special, yang sangat spesial sekali. Kita coba undang dalam topik ini. Dan untuk kali ini kita akan melakukan diskusi ini atau sesi ini dalam bahasa Inggris, karena yang kita undang juga adalah seorang yang dari luar Indonesia dan sekarang sedang berada di Kanada. Nah, untuk itu nanti kita akan gunakan bahasa Inggris dalam sesi ini. Baik, sekali lagi kita nggak pernah bosan-bosannya untuk terus bicara tentang hal-hal yang terkait dengan isu-isu lingkungan. Oke, kita akan mulai dengan narasumber kita, dan tentu saya akan diawali dulu dengan sedikit introducing ya tentang apa yang akan kita diskusikan untuk hari ini. Baik, protecting human rights inherently means protecting the environment. In recent years, recognition of the link between human rights and environment has grown significantly. The number and scope of international and domestic laws, court decisions, and academic studies on relationship between human rights and the environment have expanded rapidly. Human rights and the environment encompass the study of obligations related to a safe, clean, healthy, and sustainable environment. It also promotes best practice in utilizing human rights principles for environmental policy making. Many countries now include the right to a healthy environment in their constitution. However, numerous questions about the connection between human rights and the environment remain unanswered and require further exploration. So, today we are honored to speak with Muhammad Tahsin. Tahsin is a software engineer with 7 years of professional experience and currently work at Carfax, United States. Before this, Tahsin lived in refugee circumstances in Indonesia for about 5 years, and experience that deeply informed his perspective on human rights and sustainability. Tahsin has also worked at Empower Canada, a company focused on advancing green energy solutions, where he gained insight into the connection between technology and environmental sustainability. So, Assalamualaikum, Tahsin.
Waalaikumsalam, Pa.
Yeah, nice to see you here in our channel today.
I think it's my pleasure, Pa, to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Pa, for making the time.
Okay. So, I have some question to you. So, the first question, how will you describe the relationship between human rights and environmental sustainability?
Thank you, Pa, for allowing me to share my opinions on these questions.
You are welcome.
That's an interesting point, actually, like the relationship between the human rights and environmental sustainability. Like when I think about the link, the connection between these two, I feel like, there are two sides of a coin, like one side cannot or does not exist with the other side, right? If you see, when we think about human rights in general, what is the first thing comes to our mind? Like we think about ensuring like every individual has the access to the fundamentals, like the basic conditions necessarily for life, right? Like we think about health, we think about food, shelter, or life, liberty, access to equality, and so on, right? On the other hand, when we think about sustainable environment, the first thing at least comes to my mind is that the habitability of the planet, right? Like we whenever we are thinking about sustainable environment, I feel like we are thinking about ensuring that the planet remains sustainable for the upcoming generation, for the future generations. We are talking about avoiding the temperature difference, like sudden difference in the temperature, like getting extremely cold, or in some places there are heat waves, like getting extremely hot, or maybe unexpected rains that causes flooding, right? This we are trying to avoid this. Those are the things that comes to our mind when it goes to the sustainable environment. But you see, like when we talk about the right to life or health, food, shelter, these things, these fundamental things cannot be actually fully realized without a healthy environment. Like a healthy environment, a sustainable environment should be in the root to ensure all the other fundamental rights, like human rights, right? So I feel like, if you ask me, unsustainable environment can directly or indirectly violating the basic human rights. If I can give an example, I like to think about is building a house. Let's say, if we want to build a house, what is the first thing we think about? The foundation, right? Then once we have the foundation, a good foundation to build a house, then we think about like how should we structure the house, how should we build the windows, the roof, the walls, the pillars, and so on. Similarly, I like to think about the sustainable environment as the foundation of the house. If the foundation is wrong, or there is a crack on the foundation, rest of the things, building the walls, building the doors, building the roofs, the pillars, all these things will fall apart, will not make much more sense. So if you ask me, like the relationship between human rights and environmental sustainability, I try to think just like that.
Okay. Thanks for your explanation, Tahsin. So the next question is, millions of refugees have fled region plagued by war and violence in search of safety. Tragically, many have lost their life during their journeys. While this crisis is devastating, the environmental impact of displacement is often overlooked. So, what are your insights on the environmental consequences of the refugee crisis, and what the measures can be taken to address this challenge?
That's an interesting one, like definitely there are environmental impacts of the refugee crisis all over the world. Like every month or every years, there are millions of refugees, like fleeing their home countries, right? Like let's say, let me give an example. an example that I have seen with my own eye, like
Yeah.
in South Asia, let's say in 2017 alone, there were over 1 million Rohingya refugees that fled their home countries just to Bangladesh, right? So this is just example in South Asia, but all over the world, let's say in Asia, in recently after the Taliban government takeover, there were probably more than 2.5 million refugees, like seeking, looking for a safe place all around the world, right? Or think about Syrian refugees, 6.7 million around, like data statistics says around more than 6.7 million Syrian refugees fled their countries since the outbreak of the Syrian civil war, right? So if we think from that perspective, like that amount of people moving from one place to another, that is not an easy thing to for the host countries to facilitate a shelter for them, a place for them, manage all the facilities that they need for them to stay, right? Like a common problem I can think about or I can see is the deforestation, right? Let's say, I will get back to the previous example I gave, that the Rohingya refugees that flew to Bangladesh, just because of that, the place they are living in Bangladesh, they had to cut so many trees just to make a livable place for them. This is not just in Bangladesh, like all around the world. They need to cut the forest, they need to clean up the forest to make some place for them, which is, I think, a significant impact on the climate change, right? And also, that's one of the issue. The other issue I can see is like the waste management issues, like overcrowded camps usually generates significant waste, right? Like, what are the things we can think about when it comes to waste? Like, the waste they are producing from their food, from their daily lives, the paper waste, the plastic waste, all these things, right? So I think when we sum up the numbers all around the world, that refugees moving from one place to another place, the impact little by little, if we sum up, it becomes a significant impact over on the environment.
Okay. The next question, Tahsin. The influx of refugees into a country's territory has contributed to pollution in affected areas, and partly due to population increases and the establishment of refugee camps, and often relying on plastic, like you mentioned before, as a temporary housing. What a sustainable solution will you propose to mitigate these issues?
Like sustainable solution.
Maybe you have some solution for these issues, or for this case, like I mentioned before.
Right. I mean, as a solution, I think we can definitely try to or maybe prioritize the problem we have just mentioned, that the problem causing, the problem getting caused by moving a significant number of people from one place to another. Like, for example, back to my previous example, I'm getting back to that example again and again because that's a place like the Bangladeshi Rohingya refugee camp. I have seen with my own eye. That's the thing I can think about more practically. Let's say when it goes to solution or try to find a solution for those Rohingya camps, or maybe in general refugee camps all around the world, few component comes to my mind. One of them is, let's say, green infrastructure, and I think I'm talking about the green energy solution at first because it's very recently I have worked for a green energy solution company, Empowered, and that's how I feel. I feel the necessity of consuming green energy as much as possible. Let's say probably pretty straightforward. We can install solar panels or solar powered lighting and cooking system. Let's say for this solar powered lighting and cooking system might not make much difference when it goes to few families, but if we can do it for, let's say, millions of people just in one place in refugee camp, I would say it's a significant impact. It would keep a significant positive impact in the climate change towards sustainable solution. And also, I also can think about, let's say, waste management, better waste management. Probably we can take initiatives to implementing recycling programs within various refugee camps, right? And again, like because of my profession and my recent recent work in energy, green energy based company, I also try to think from technology perspective. I think I'm not sure how much technology friendly our audience is, but like if it goes to technical terms, I think we can talk about creating digital platform for resource distribution. Let's say there is a refugee camp in Aceh, Indonesia. So we can develop a mobile or web platform to streamline the distribution of essential resources, right? Like we're talking about food, water, medicines. And the platform can check the inventory, track the inventory, reduce waste, or maybe ensuring every family that is eligible getting the right amount of supply based on their needs. Or maybe, are you familiar with Halodoc? Are you familiar with Halodoc in Indonesia?
Yeah, I think yes. So.
Yeah, like that's when I was in Indonesia, I used Halodoc for for some medicines. I think that's a fantastic idea, like telemedicine and remote healthcare solution. Like when I was in Bangladesh, I had the chance to visit Rohingya refugee camp. I saw the healthcare system and the health problems the refugees, like pretty much every family facing, is really challenging to give proper access to each family. So I think tools like or solution like Indonesian Halodoc, I mean, in general, telemedicine, technology-driven medicine supply, or doctors' suggestions.
Yes.
Like, implementing this type of platforms where refugees can access remote healthcare and consultations through mobile apps or computers. This platform can provide general healthcare advice like mental health support and basic treatments. I think it will help extremely. Or I saw in Indonesian-based education platform like Ruang Guru or Pahamify, those type of things, but we can definitely implement in refugee camps. Like we are talking about an audience of few millions people, right? So if we have an easily accessible mobile-based or easily accessible education platform via online, I think it will make significant impact in terms of the problems they are facing day to day. And there are few others I can think of, like solar powered digital system, or maybe water and sanitation monitoring system, like technology driven. So I think I can see a lot of opportunities or a lot of scopes to make improvements, whether it's via using the power of technology or maybe strategic solution.
Okay. The next question, Tahsin. How can international cooperation play a role in addressing the dual challenges of protecting human rights and ensuring environmental sustainability in the context of displacement? And what are the key priorities that governments and international organizations should focus on?
Right. Could you please repeat the question?
Okay.
I didn't.
How can international cooperation play a role in addressing the dual challenges of protecting human rights and ensuring environmental sustainability in the context of displacement?
Mhm.
Yeah. Yes, please, Tahsin.
Yeah, sure.
So okay, so the other thing is, what are the key priorities that governments and international organizations should focus on?
The priorities. Okay. From what I can think, from what I can think, internationally, when it goes to like international cooperation, probably the first thing comes to my mind is the resources and the funding. Like organizations like UNHCR, or there are many organizations working towards this crisis, right? Like the refugee crisis around the globe. So, like back in my time in Indonesia, one of the thing I personally experienced, me and my family personally experienced, for example, is healthcare support. So if I give my own example, let's say my mom or my parents, let's say, got sick. So sometimes it is little bit difficult to get emergency support for someone who is living in refugee circumstances, which I understand that UNHCR or other sister organization of UNHCR trying their best to accommodate pretty much everyone, but still it's quite often that it gets challenging for refugees to access healthcare properly. At that point of time, I also understand that they need to cope with the funding that they have. They need to manage they need to, they have limited resources, right? So from that perspective, I'm trying to talk that if we have an increased international funding for, let's say, both humanitarian aid and also environmental sustainability in the crisis zones, let's say the place that is hosting those refugees, right? Like Indonesia in Aceh, or maybe Bangladesh Rohingya refugee camp in Cox's Bazar, or other places around the world. So an increased amount of funding and resources for those organizations comes to my mind. And also, I think knowledge sharing about the best practices among the refugees, like let's say UNHCR can arrange more knowledge sharing session among the refugees, like how they can properly utilize what they have, what they should do and not do for the crisis, stuff like that. And also, statistics says, I think I gave a little bit of example, like how many, how in just last 5 years alone, let's say Ukrainian refugees, there are 8 million people fled their country, or let's say Palestinian refugees, 5.7 million people, or Iraqi refugees, 1.5 million people, Syrian refugees, 6.7 million people. It's more than those numbers, right? They are moving one place to another. Why? Because they are looking for safety, or there is a problem in their home countries, right? So I think creating policies in countries that address the root cause, like what is the root cause of their movement, why they need to move, what is the problem that home country facing. The numbers I have said earlier, let's say if we could stop just one of the problem we face, the refugees faced in their home country, we could stop few millions of refugee migration from one country to another. So just by detecting a root cause and preventing it. So I think it's a very important point. I think that ideally creating the policy to address the root cause.
Okay. The last question, Tahsin. your journey being a refugee to securing a role at one of Canada's largest companies and ultimately becoming a Canadian citizen is incredibly inspiring. Could you share the challenges you face during this transition? The key moments or decisions that help you adapt and succeed, and how this experience shaped your outlook on personal resilience and professional growth?
That's a fantastic question.
It's a very important question, I think.
Right. From refugee standpoint, being a refugee for 5 years in Indonesia, I think I understand the mindset or the thrilling journey a refugee goes through, in their life, right? Like someone who is living in refugee circumstances, versus someone who is living a standard life, a very general life with all the basic facilities they have. There is a drastic difference. Let's say when my time in Indonesia, there are few things like I was strongly feeling like or few, I should say, few limitations. Let's say the basic things like getting a health insurance or being able to drive legally, getting a driving license, or getting a bank account, being able to opening a bank account, being able to work, or stuff like that. These are very fundamentals to day-to-day life, right? So when I was thinking about those in general, for me and my family, it was giving me like tremendous amount of mental pressure. So from that mental pressure, from that being in that situation, I think the life is pretty challenging for anybody who is living in those situations. So at the same time, if those people need to develop their skill set, develop themselves professionally, I understand that it can be really challenging, which was for me. Like, it was really challenging dealing with all those limitations, taking care of family, taking care of myself, taking care of my professional activities as well. So those are the things was challenging for me throughout the journey, which at a certain point I got this amazing opportunity. There is a program Canada introduced, something called EMPP. I think it stands for Economy Mobility Pathway Pilot Program. So what this type of program essentially does is focusing on those displaced people, like the people who are living in a refugee circumstances, and giving them the proper work opportunity. So that's the program actually I came to Canada through, right? So it was the life-changing opportunity. So if you ask me how was my journey in a nutshell, I would say it was a thrilling movie. It was a thrilling journey. So it was full of like totally ups and downs from my mental stability, from my family perspective, from my professional perspective. It was challenging, but I enjoyed the journey, Pa.
Okay, Alhamdulillah. Okay, Tahsin, thank you for sharing your incredible journey with all of us here on our channel. Your story from being a refugee to securing a role in one of Canada's largest companies and becoming a Canadian citizen is a powerful testament to resilience and determination. Your experience offers invaluable insight and inspiration to our listeners, reminding us of the strength it takes to overcome adversity and achieve success. And we are truly honored to have had the opportunity to share your journey with our audience. Wishing you continued success and impact in all that you do, Tahsin. Thank you very much once again for you for your time today. Yep.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much, but thank you, everyone.
Okay. Demikian kita sudah berbincang-bincang tadi dengan Muhammad Tahsin yang merupakan juga dulunya pernah menjadi pengungsi di Indonesia dan sekarang sudah sukses di Kanada, bekerja di salah satu perusahaan terbesar di Kanada yang bergerak di bidang green energy. Sampai ketemu di lain waktu. Sampai jumpa dan assalamualaikum.